Alright, so I wanted to try something a little bit different. Right now I've got a couple videos uploading to YouTube, so I didn't really just want to sit around and wait for them to upload. And the reason I am sitting here is because when I did try uploading one of them, the sound, for some reason, got really screwed up. There was a screeching right after the Sixth Sense intro. So I'm just going to sit here for the couple hours it takes to upload them, make sure they're right. I'm not exactly sure what that was all about, which is unfortunate because it took forever for that to upload in the first place. And it took 2 hours just to convert the video yesterday after I was finished editing it. So I decided to pull the hard disk drive off of my game recorder and take a look at the stuff I'd been recording for the past couple weeks since I've gotten it. And I had a Retron 5 I bought, I think the middle of January. It's kind of bad that I'm getting to that point where I have to think about something I just bought. And it worked great for the first week, then all of a sudden the NES cards stopped working in total. Like, they would not read any of them, it kept saying unknown disk, and I tried restarting it, and I tried the factory format, and then it bricked the system. I got a white screen, and the only way to get past that white screen I saw was to hook the Retron up to your computer and download a whole bunch of different other files and reflash the entire drive, and I was just like, I don't have time for this. So I called him up, I gave him my receipt, I was like, hey, it doesn't work. So it got shipped off last Thursday, so hopefully we'll be getting it back soon. I've got to check the tracking number to see where it is. But the Retron 5 is actually a great emulation system. You can see here that I don't think I have any filters on this one, but the filters that they do give you to make it look a little smoother, actually the filters might be on this one. It's hard to tell because the screen I'm doing the narration on is really small. But the filters, it gives you like 6 or 7 filters that make it look pretty good if you don't want to look at pixel art while you're playing your games on your big screen. And so what I did is I decided to play a game that I never had a chance to finish because I didn't have a NES as a kid. I would always have to go to my friend Mike's house, Jamaican Mike, and he was one of the only couple kids in our neighborhood that had a NES. So we'd go over there and we would try to beat Jaws, and because we were kids, we never bothered to read the instruction booklet, so we didn't know what to do. We would just keep going around in circles with all the shells and everything. We didn't know we had to go back and forth between the 2 ports in order to get upgrades. So we never really finished the game at all. I don't even think we ever made a single dent in Jaws' health. There goes a little mini Jaws. So I finally got a chance. I bought it, like, I think this game was like $4. I found it at a flea market along with like the 70 other games I bought recently. Flea markets are great. If you've ever watched Pat the NES Punk and his finds at flea markets, it's amazing. You can find, I wouldn't say great games, but I would find games that you've always been wondering about, and your parents either didn't want to buy them for you at full price back in the 80s or whatever, and you can get them for almost next to nothing. Or you run into those sellers that think, like, Mario and Duck Hunt is worth $50. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen people that think the most common cart out of all the carts available for the NES are actually worth almost the full price of a brand new game. It's so weird, and the prices have spiked since the release of the NES Classic. It's something that you still can't find. Here in Florida, I've looked and looked and looked and looked, and haven't been able to get anything, and that's why I bought the Retron 5. It's because it's got HDMI output, and that's all I really care about. I was getting tired of looking at regular composite video on the TV. It would look horrible on my one TV, which is a newer LG, a 60-inch. It looks awful. But if I plug it into my Sharp, my Samsung, which is like 40-inch in the bedroom, it looks relatively decent. But it also depends. If I put in the Retron 3 in the composite cable, it looks good. But then if I plug in the flashback, like the newer Atari flashback, it looks absolutely awful. Which is so weird. You get such varying video quality between these two systems that are doing nothing but emulating these old ROMs. So what I did with Jaws is I put on the cheat codes that you can have. They're not built in, you have to put them on an SD card, but There are quite a few for Jaws, so I would test them out to see which ones would work and which ones wouldn't. And unfortunately with Jaws, the first ones I put in was like the multiplier. But the problem was, I also put on invincibility, and invincibility will not let you touch the shells, so you can't collect them. And even with the score multiplier in there, it doesn't matter. When you pull into the port, you need the shells. So, as you can see, I've got 0 shells, even though I've been trying to collect them. As you see, I just float over them and nothing happens. So, I think we're coming up to the point where I had to split the video to turn it off once I figured out it was the invincibility that was making it possible to play. And I didn't really care about doing a legitimate Let's Play video. I just wanted to see the ending after 30 years of waiting. So, I mean, it's not a genuine Let's Play where I'm testing the skills I have with the NES controller, which, what made this even harder is I wasn't using the NES controller, I was using the I'm sorry, not Hyperion, the Retron 5's controller that comes with the Bluetooth controller, which is a pain in the ass. It's uncomfortable to hold. It's this weird. It's a really weird shape. It's basically the shape it is, so it can fit into the area where the Genesis power converter can go. The back of the power converter has an odd indent. It has an odd angle to it, so the controller was made specifically to fit in that little slot. Now, the slot in the back of the Retron 5 does not charge it, though it does have the USB micro to USB mini cable comes with it, so you can charge it right there. But still, it's not a charging dock. So I think, yeah, we're at the point of the video where I've turned off invincibility. But what I have turned on is unlimited lives. And then anytime I'm hit by anything in the ocean, it immediately just starts me back at the map. So it's there you go, right there. So we're right back out, no lives lost, but I can keep continuing on without having to see the game over screen, then jump back in or whatever, and I can collect the shells now. But look at the ridiculously high score from the multiplier. There's not a whole lot. I think this is an LGN game. The cart's downstairs, and I'm really not going to get into it, but I'm pretty sure James, the Angry Video Game Nerds, cover that. It's an LGN game, but it's actually one of the better LGN games. It's a challenge, and I mean, what else were you going to do with the Jaws game in the 80s? What else was there to do? They could have just made it like a reverse Galaga game where you're always at the top of the ocean just dropping charges onto the fish, like in the bonus game. But for what it was fun. I mean, as kids, we loved it. I mean, we would all huddle around Jamaican Mike's TV and just sit there until we got absolutely frustrated with it, and then we went outside to go play. It was the same, I think, with like Super Mario Brothers 2. We would just get frustrated in some of the upper levels, like around when you fight Mauser. We would just go, screw this, go outside, run around on our bikes. Sorry, there's a little gap in the audio there. I was trying to... Looks like we're probably about halfway through until we get to the end. And if you've already watched a Let's Play video, you already know the ending, but for those of you that have just tuned in to see what the ending is for this game, it doesn't make sense unless you've watched Jaws 4. Jaws 4... campy and horrible, and the only redeeming thing was Michael Caine. But those movies, like, all I ever cared about when I saw a Jaws movie was the mechanics that went into making the shark, making Bruce float and attack and all that. That's all I cared about, and that's why I became an engineer. Because I just cared about special effects and what was going on behind the scenes, not so much the movies. Because even now, if I go back, and I love Star Wars, but if I go back now and I watch them, like, I didn't care so much about the stories. I cared about how they made those miniatures move and how they translated still shots of something into life. Though I think a lot of the shots of the fighters and the Falcon were all in motion. It was just the camera system that they rigged up to get that smooth level of motion without it seeming like stop motion. Like the Tauntauns, you can tell they're stop motion. They just look bad. And the same with the AT-AT walkers, but the amount of detail and the armatures that had to be built, all the engineering that went into that is what interested me the most. And the same with the original Jaws, the original Bruce. Just the giant rig, if you've ever seen a picture of it, that rig is massive. It hardly ever worked, but still, when someone comes to you, like the prop master, and says, we need to build a giant frickin' shark to attack a boat and swallow Robert Shaw. I wish I got those kind of requests from my job. It's like, can you just build us a giant monster to eat this British actor? Yeah, the only real memories I have from this is just frustration. And I think Jamaican Mike had this, Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, which we would play the light gun Duck Hunt game a lot, and Mario 2 and Punch Out. Which, being like kids, like, I can't remember how far we got. I think we got to the Indian guy. I can't remember his name now. Damn. But that's about as far as we got. None of us ever got to Mike Tyson when it was still Mike Tyson's Punch Out. We never got to him anywhere close. And going back and playing it now, I'm like, I wonder if kids would be able to get past Glass Joe. And I think that's something that Monday Matt brought up. I believe it was him, that the kids today cannot beat Glass Joe, or they have a hard time, or it's a generalization that they brought these kids in game of NES control and they couldn't figure out the basic left punch, right punch, and then, or face punch, and then gut punch on Glass Joe. The easiest way to beat him is just wait for that opening and just keep hitting him in the stomach. I can't remember ever reading the instruction book, like I said before, so I don't know if you're actually on the Orca or if this was all strictly based off of Jaws 4. Because the boat kind of looks like the boat from Jaws 4, and when you see the end fight against Jaws, you'll see it's exactly what happened in that one cut of Jaws 4. So there were two different endings, and both of them were horrible. But that's basically how it is. There's nothing spectacular. I can't really remember the PS2 version of Jaws all that well either. I can't remember. Well, you were Jaws, but I don't know if you ever actually got to play any of those iconic scenes. I remember in the one part you did get into an aquarium, but I don't think you ever had a chance to like try to sink the orca. And Jaws is really an untapped market because I can remember there was an iPhone game, there was the NES game, then there was the PS2/Xbox, and I think it came out on GameCube. Remember those? And then they had one stage in that awful Universal Studios game that came out for GameCube, where you were just in the back of the orca just throwing barrels off. Oh, that was a disappointment. I remember my buddy Eric and I got that. There was like a drought. There were like huge droughts in like GameCube games. So I think all we had for the longest time was like Super Monkey Ball 2 and Wave Racer. So when Universal Studios came out, we were like, oh, awesome, because we lived in Tampa and we didn't live that far from Universal Studios in Orlando. So like, cool, maybe it's all right. Because this is before we like got into the habit of reading reviews, before we just stupidly went out and bought stuff. It was that great time in our early 20s when we just had money and we could just throw it away on stupid bullshit. So we got it, and then you're just walking around the park collecting autographs from mascots and playing horrible minigames. Like the Back to the Future minigame where you're piloting the DeLorean trying to hit Biff and the other DeLorean, and it just looks like, the DeLorean itself looks like a chrome-plated Honda Accord from the mid-80s. It's awful. Whoever designed these models just... I don't know if they just found some guy that had some programming skills at Universal and just said, hey, just throw this together. We don't care. One of the mini games is watching multiple angle shots of the Waterworld attraction at Universal Studios Hollywood. I mean, how does that even come up as being something you want to put into a game? A stunt attraction. Oh, it's only a part of the stunt attraction. It's the very end of the stunt attraction. How do you make the decision that out of all your other things that you have going on at your park, the only good thing you can put in there, not Kong, not anything else, is to sit and watch multiple angles of a stunt attraction? That would be like them taking the Fear Factor one that's here in Universal Studios Orlando and putting that and just watching like people fall off a building or doing stupid stunts. Like, wow, this is a great game. Woo! It's like a Flash game you would see in the very early like 2000s. It's like it was something you would always see like on Macromedia Flash. I was surprised with only a power level 5 that you can actually bring Jaws almost all the way to heal. Really quick, too. So essentially, the entire game can be completed in less than 20 minutes. If I hadn't been dicking around so much, I probably could have done it probably quicker than that. Like, yeah, his power's almost gone. I think as soon as he goes off screen, that's when we hit him. Yep. And this is what starts your end game right here. I can't remember how if you only have 9 strobes. I think the other cheat I turned on was infinite strobes. But I don't know if you collect them throughout the game or if it just starts you with 9 right when you get into the boss fight. And I didn't really get how you're supposed to kill him at first. This is my first time actually getting to this point, and I don't think I'd ever seen a Let's Play of this all the way through. And I don't know if I watched a Angry Video Game Nerd episode of Jaws and saw the end of it. I can't remember. But this was just out of luck that I got him. So I was just digging around because I wasn't really thinking about it, and then I just stabbed him right there. I wasn't even thinking about it. It was like, okay, strobe, like, do I have to wait till he gets close enough? And then off goes the plane, and it goes into hyperspace. And that's it. And I think I sat for a while thinking, like, are credits supposed to roll? Is there supposed to be anything? But no, the music just plays. And it stays at this static screen of a very, it looks like something you would find in an elderly Floridian's home. You would see something like that hanging up on the wall. Like when you get out to like more of the cities by the coast, both on the east and west coast of Florida, you see a lot of that. You'll go into like someone's home. You've been invited over to Aunt Jessie's, and you see just all this nautical stuff. And they're not from Florida. They come down here and they think like the Florida thing is to buy as many ship's wheels and flamingos and wooden pelican statues and bad pastel art. That is the thing retirees think when they come down here to Florida. That is the only thing we're about. And that is the least Floridian thing that anyone has in their house. Speaking as a Florida native, I never got that whole let's make everything about the ocean. Like, most of us live like less than 10 minutes from the ocean. I mean, we don't need to be reminded it's always there. So, yeah, I think the music just stops at one point. That's okay. If that's gonna happen, that's gonna happen. I don't even know if this is actually recording at all because I can't hear anything through my headphones. Maybe. Oh, there it is. Okay. I had the mic muted all the way down. So, yeah, that's it. It's gonna just ramble on for a couple more minutes. It's not as bad as the Wayne's World one. I played it on the Retron 5, and I turned some cheats on because I'd never gotten all the way through it. And I fell asleep on like the 3rd stage. Like I just passed out downstairs in the living room. And I woke up and it was like 2 hours of just Wayne's like standby animations.